Hello again, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a digital recreation of a pencil drawing I did. The original drawing I did in the car while I waited on my fiance to get her nails done. So with all the spare time, as you can see, I had a lot of shading going on. I also want to talk about the process of bringing a unique character to life in Clip Studio Paint with colors. I'm very new to this process. As anyone who's watched my videos have seen, I just recently started frequently using this program. So you guys will be learning with me. Now, we want to set up our workspace. I just set a 140 DPI, which I'm not really sure what that means yet. I'll figure that out later. And everything I've done so far is I took a photo of the drawing, uploaded it to Clip Studio, and I dropped the opacity so I can overlay all the lines with the inking pen. Now I'm using the Real G Pen tool. For me, it just feels like the lines come out how I like them, and I can press harder or softer to make them thinner and kind of make them wisp away. Now, whenever you are doing character art, you want to make sure you have the anatomy in mind. So when I was initially drawing this, I made sure I drew all the framework for the head, the jaw, the hands, just basic shapes, little primitive things that eventually will become this. I'm not going to call this a masterpiece, but it becomes, what we have here. And the character itself was inspired by a friend of mine who I used to work with. He wanted to make a character for a comic that I never actually made, and his idea was someone who used smoke as a power, any gas, poison, sleeping gas, tear gas, and the design is kind of a little inspired by Scarecrow from Batman, hence the half face mask with the burlap and the stitches. So I went with that theme throughout the entire outfit, just stitching and rope, tattered gloves. Now I believe here I am drawing the fingernails, yeah. You also want to keep proportions in mind when you're drawing, so this hand is foreshortened, which essentially means, something that's closer to the camera should be bigger. And I know it's not huge and massive, I didn't want to go with too much exaggeration here, but I did my best to make it obvious that it's a little closer, so the lines are fairly bold. Now here I'm just doing little staples in the mask stitching, just getting their outlines done. And you can see these lines are thin, and I don't believe I changed the size of the pen tip yet. I'm kind of just lightly touching the screen. I'm adding the tiny little details before I go over it finally, making sure the clothing is correct. Oh man, I did not realize my camera wasn't centered here. I guess I was zoomed in a little too far. One of my greatest pitfalls, I believe, is I'm not super confident when it comes to how I want the eyeballs to look, as well as the hands. The hands can just be crippling for me, and hands are very hard to hide. Normally you just want to hide your weakness. Can't hide hands all the time, they're in everything. So I'm gonna let this play for a bit. Oh, I take that back. Okay, so here I'm messing with different brushes and brush sizes to create the smoke power. And for me, as you'll see, I just didn't think it looked that good. Maybe I need to go and get some different brushes to save time. It just wasn't looking exactly how I wanted it to. But that's fine, a big part of drawing is drawing and then, oop, too big, drawing and erasing until it looks how you want it to. So don't be afraid if your first attempt at something isn't exactly what you had in your head. You can always experiment and play with it. You know, sometimes when I'm drawing, I will erase something. I'll even crumble the whole drawing up, even if one little thing isn't right and it frustrates me. So don't be afraid to erase and go back and try it again and even redraw the entire drawing. As long as you can get the basic idea of what you want on the paper, you can always do it again later and even better. And as you all have seen with, anything that I've posted, not every drawing is amazing. Some aren't that great. Some, I'm not very proud of, but I'm just trying to get content out, and, you guys can see that not every piece that gets posted is a gem. Most of the art channels or even art social media pages, you don't see all the failures that these people make, all the, trash drawings, things that don't actually come out, because nobody swings and hits it every single time. I can't count the amount of drawings that are probably in the, that ended up in the recycle field and are being drawn on right now as fresh paper. I've crumbled up drawings, torn them up, immediately tossed them away. And that's something maybe I shouldn't do. That way I have something to look back on and maybe redraw. I have a handful of pieces in my old binder or my old notebooks that I can go back and maybe see if I can draw them better, which I should be able to do by now. That would be nice. Now, as I mentioned earlier with the basic primitive shapes, this is just a tube, so, a cylinder. So the little hatching I'm doing is to show that it is a round cord or rope. And so each hatch line will have a slight curve in it. And here, just putting where the shadows are going to be in the clothing. I don't want to go extreme, like, I don't know, the box office artist or Jim Lee with the shadows. I just don't feel confident doing blocking like that. For me, when I do it, I feel like it's my placement and I need a lot more practice with it. Not to say I'll never do it, but right now I just don't feel like I'm at that level, and I don't think it works well with my art style. So I'm just going to let this go while I do all the hatching in the background. I'm considering doing a 30-day art challenge and just uploading things, but I think what I want to do, if I have enough subscribers or viewers, is maybe check the comments, which are usually a barren wasteland, with maybe 2 or 3 of you, who I appreciate. If you guys can come up with suggestions for a drawing I can do for the rest of this month, actually, because there's less than 30 days, I can look at those and maybe do one of those every day and upload it. And I'll even shout out whoever made the suggestion. Unless you guys made the same suggestion, then anyone who did. I try to go through my comments and respond to any questions, or at least like anything, positive or negative. Not every drawing is going to be something that everybody likes. It's opinion based. Some art people love it, some people hate it, sometimes it doesn't look quite right. But that's the cool thing about art. If you don't like this drawing, maybe you'll like the next one. Or maybe you just don't like my artwork at all and you have nothing to do and you are just watching this to go to sleep because I'm boring. And if that's the case, a view's a view, I'll take it. Now here I'm trying something that I don't normally do. I'm trying the selection tool and filling. This is something I learned from, I think it was a Proco video, where they were explaining how they color their pieces. So I'm just trying to see if a different pen will work. So, yeah, this one's not going to do it for me. But as you can see, I'm definitely trying to make it work. Now, when you're picking colors for a character, it's highly advised that you figure it out before you draw it. But I'm terrible at colors, so believe it or not, I'm winging this. So I didn't have any of these colors in mind when I started the piece. I can't believe I'm still trying this. Now, when I was selecting the colors in the moment, I was keeping the theme of the character in mind. I mean, he's cloaked, hooded, has smoke powers. I don't know if he's a hero or a villain yet. So I went with the, was it Scarlet Magenta? It's a deep red color I picked. Now, something cool about the selection tool is that once you select the area, the colors or the ink, it won't go beyond that border. So outside of the fact that I'm doing these dark shadows first in the hair, if you notice, it's not going beyond what I selected. So if you select like a big area, like you'll see later with the clothing and the hair, not the hair, the clothing mostly, I can just kind of scribble everything in without worrying about going outside the lines. Otherwise, this video would probably be almost twice as long, and I've already doubled the speed. Believe it or not. I felt like most of my drawings, I rushed them, and I either skip, adding more details that would make the drawing pop more, or it just doesn't look like I'll miss things, like something that I'll notice later that just won't look correct. Like the Sasuke drawing I posted last week, I believe. When I looked back on it, I noticed that the hair kind of was too big. It stuck out too far. It's not something I noticed when I was drawing it. Another factor is I still don't have a proper camera setup, so I kind of do still have to lean a little farther away than I'd like. Which is part of the reason I've been doing these digital pieces, so I can draw them a little more confidently without recording, and then just record the digital process. Now I'm just gonna talk over this part because I definitely whiffed it like 4 or 5 times. I tried selection pen, and again, I'm new to this software, so you are watching me learn it as, as I go. Eventually I realized the lasso tool is the best one. For some reason the pen just did not allow me to color inside. It's driving me crazy actually watching this. Something I end up doing a little later that you should do is saving frequently as you do your work, especially digital, and creating new layers when you're doing anything. So everything I've done so far has been on the same layer, but something I realized later in the piece is that I can make different layers for color. I could even separate each piece that I'm coloring in a different layer. That way, if I did want to go back and change it, I won't affect anything else that I really like about it. So, take note of that for anyone who doesn't know what they're doing, like myself. And another thing, since we're zoomed into his face, is you want to be confident when you're putting down your lines. You can see in certain parts where I get a little shaky tracing over, such as the top of his hood and little pieces of his eye where my hand gets shaky. But the more confident you are, the better the lines look. And you can see where I added different line weights, especially in the mask. I went a little heavier where his nose is going to be, as well as his jawline. And I let the lip area be soft since it is a mask. And it's just practice. There are little exercises you can do. Everyone does things differently. Like sometimes I'll draw basic shapes just over and over again on a piece of paper, just to get a feel for, getting those primitives down, because everything you do draw is based on basic shapes. It's really just circles, squares, triangles, and cylinders. And as well as obviously 3D versions of those, so cubes, spheres, pyramids, and more cylinders. And you kind of reorganize those into the basic idea of what you want to draw. Another thing is to learn a little bit of basic anatomy. You don't have to be a professional, but if you know generally where things are supposed to be, it's a lot harder to mess up, the proportions or the look of a character. And that's an issue. Even today, I still have it. I have a pretty solid idea of anatomy, but if I'm not thinking about it while I'm drawing, I will easily drop the ball, and an eye could be misplaced, it's not level, the torso and the hips might look a little off, the arms could be misplaced. Now, a fun thing about not drawing realism is that I can exaggerate things, and it is slightly excusable, to have things just a little off. But I guess if anything, I'm my own biggest critic, which is why I've been drawing since, I believe kindergarten was when I started drawing, and I'm just now really kind of sharing what I can do. And I know most people who've been drawing this long are probably a little better than me, or a lot better, maybe. But I'm not really formally trained in any way, and I don't really have a community to share with and learn from. So lately I've just been watching, videos of different artists who draw, Chazza, all the Proco tutorials. Is it Mark Burnett? Yeah, I think so. He's the one who does the YouTube art school. He's really good. I'll watch different videos of, just artwork slides from different mangakas, like Horikoshi from My Hero Academia. I really like Kishimoto, who did Naruto. His art style is really good. His perspectives, I think, are amazing. Murata, who does One Punch Man and Ice Shield, he's amazing. My probably most influential is Toriyama when it comes to the manga style, but I did adopt a lot of comic book ish details. Like I don't like drawing the heads too large for the most part, which I should get past. But I really love Greg Capullo, who does he did the Batman Rebirth run. Again, Jim Lee, Frank Miller's really good, Todd McFarlane. and you might not see strong influence from their art, but I do keep a lot of it in mind when I'm doing any shading at all. I just think about, where the light source is, and they're really good about that. Here I'm just doing a little light shadow under his hair. And I know most people will say you should do your darkest shade first, which normally I would, but again, I'm winging every color on this drawing. None of it was planned. And here you can see the hesitation in where and how I'm going to put the shadows for his fingers. I'm just trying to give it, more depth. So I'm going to let this roll for a bit because I'm rambling. For 21 minutes I've been rambling. This chair's squeaky. And as you saw with the nails, I just can't help myself. That's part of why I suggested doing new layers and the selection tool, because as you saw, I had to erase some things. Well, I guess we'll let that roll. Did any of you see the Netflix version of One Piece? And if so, what did you think about it? You can leave your opinions in the comments. I myself have not... I recently got into One Piece. I got a bunch of cliff notes from my friends who've been watching it from the beginning. And I really liked the live action, just from what I'm already aware of. They stayed fairly true to the character designs. The story was good, and they made it as realistic as they could. One Piece is extremely wacky, but it was amazing. In my opinion, some people may have hated it. Most anime adaptations aren't that great. I know most of you can remember the sin that was Dragon Ball Evolution. I just can't forgive them for that. Another thing that I don't know if anyone else does, but something that helps me with my ideas and when it comes to drawing is music. Different bands, different songs, different artists kind of help me create the vibe I'm going for when I am drawing. So for this piece, I was I was listening to a lot of, I guess, darker songs. I listened to Breaking Benjamin a lot, just to keep myself in the right zone for drawing this. It was that. I believe I listened to the revamped version of I'm Not a Vampire. I think that's Falling in Reverse? Yeah, it's Falling in Reverse. note to self, I should probably pull the camera back a little bit, because you guys are missing a lot of some of the things I'm doing here. As you can see, I've decided to just leave that completely black, so that's my shadow area. Oh, the camera's really focusing on my hand. See, this is what I was talking about with being able to scribble. And even with the selection tool, I do have to come back and clean up everything. I think one of the most difficult things about this piece was actually picking the colors. So here I went with a warm gray for the mask, and I decided to go with kind of a gold yellow for the staples. And later on you'll see that actually influences the color I give to not only his cloak, but also the smoke power itself. Now, will this be the final, color layout for this character? I don't know. I'm probably going to take a ton of opinions on it. But so far, I'm fairly confident in the way it looks. Now, the other one that I did, my profile picture, I really want to go back and redo that one. Or at least a different drawing of that character, and try and play with different colors to see what sticks. So here I'm deciding how I'm going to color certain things. I didn't use a selection tool here, so I'm just being very careful to kind of stay in my lines. And one thing about digital art that I like a lot is that there's infinite undos. With physical, if I do something wrong with any of the Copic markers, that's it. That's a mistake I made. But here, the undo button helps a lot. Use it as many times as you need to. And something that I like to be is my own worst critic. There are so many times you can look at something, and I've had a handful of people tell me, like, oh, this is amazing, this looks really good, and I'm staring at, like, maybe a wonky eyeball, or, one clump of hair that just looks weird to me, and as soon as they're done telling me they like it, it's going in the trash. In this piece, I think the thing that was bothering me is probably the fingers and a little bit of the hood. Maybe I could have made it less pointy. I don't know. And even just the front of the hood. I did what I could. I can't throw it away, it's digital, and we're already here. I've been voice recording for a half hour now. Now here I used, I think it was a bluish gray, and I figured that would contrast not only the gold in the staples in his eyes, but the redness of his hair. I'm no color theorist, but I thought it looked nice. Again, gotta work on that camera position, or I guess shrinking my workspace so it fits. Back to the handy dandy selection tool. I can't stress this enough. Practice, practice, practice. And I wouldn't always practice in your imagination. You can even go as far as, looking at images or references, whether it's a real model or just a photo, or even just, another person's artwork. You want to observe it, look at little things they're doing right. And not so much comparing how good their art is to yours, but just looking at what makes their piece stand out. Like, what are they doing that helps with their art popping, whether it's the color selection they use, or the line weight, or even just the general anatomy. You want to look at what you're doing that might be a weak point. Not something as much as, some people hate drawing feet and will dodge it. But if you're having a hard time, maybe with even other eye syndrome, which I have an issue with, you can look at someone else's process and see what they're doing to get those eyes where they need to be. Or even hands, maybe you want to know how to get the right shape on them, whether they're doing the primitives or they're just really good at drawing hands. You want to practice that, observe, and kind of just learn from other people. Because you can only get so far kind of trying to figure it out on your own. And that's what I did for the longest time, is I just went and did what I knew and what I was able to learn on my own. And I did plateau. I let it stress me out. It drove me up a wall or 3. And don't be afraid to fail. I think if you're afraid of failing when you're drawing, you're a little more likely to screw it up completely. You might have an end product that you just despise. It actually makes me feel kind of fortunate that I don't have a lot of subscribers right now, so the criticism I get is pretty light so far. Obviously, the more I upload, the more I open myself up to it, but I'm completely open to it. Anything that is said, I really take it and kind of marinate in it. You know, even if it is just a complete insult, like, oh, it's trash. You know, I'll still look at that piece and be like, okay, what was it that this person may not have liked? You know, not everyone is perfect. Not everyone's gonna like the stuff you do. The thing that matters most to me is the people who do like what I'm doing. Really blanked out in there. That one. Didn't have anything else to throw on top of that. But one of the biggest things is you also should really enjoy the pieces you're doing. Look, here I go again, trying to mess with this brush. You know, if you're not having fun or even liking the drawings you're doing, it will show. There was a period in my life where I just didn't want to draw anymore. It lost the fun, and the art really reflected it. You know, I became lazy, things became blocky, and I stopped for a while. I took a very long break, which a huge part of me regrets. You know, that break could have been time I was developing more as an artist. And, you know, maybe you guys wouldn't be learning this with me. I would have just known it by now. Oh, I almost burped on the microphone. But here I decided to use a brush. I believe it's the curly hair brush. I got it from the Clip Art Studio, like, community page. And I thought it looked really good at getting that whoosh effect. I don't know. And here I wanted to throw a little, you know, intensity effect into the piece. Because I am not the best at drawing backgrounds. Maybe we'll work on that in another video. You can learn with me. So here, I don't want to do a super plain white background, so a different tone of gray to also make the golden smoke pop out. And I really wanted that ability to stand out, and you can tell it's coming from him, you know, just with the eyes. Oh, I just had an idea. If I ever get the chance to do this character more, I think the smoke color will always match his eye color. So, I guess, I didn't really know what to call this smoke, but it's yellow, so mustard gas. You know, maybe I'll change it based on what he's emanating. You know, purple for poison, or green for poison. Yeah, I'll figure that out later. It's just an idea. It sounded cool in my head until I said it. Oof. And here I'm adding a darker shade of it just to kind of clean it up a little bit. You know, I'm just not being as specific as I was with the lines. I'm just trying to be a little free with it. You know, create some action with the lines. Yeah, I want it to look very active, like there's movement in it. Just those final touches. And here it looks like we are rounding out to the finale of this piece. So I'm going to get some, golden smoke clouds behind him a little bit. Just a little bit to make him pop, just a touch more. Keep the theme of the whole piece, and don't think I forgot that little chunk of hair back there. And I believe that's it. Yep, now there you have it. A smoke-powered anime character brought to life using Quick Studio Paint. Remember, it's all about practice and experimentation. Don't be afraid to try new things.